I can't hear you. You can hear me, but you can't hear Matt.
Oh my God. All right, let's try.
There he is. The birds are chirping.
Such an epic open. Thank you, audience, and Edward, for letting me know. Let's try this one more time because I haven't had enough coffee or Red Bull. Dan, after 2 years away, over 10 million Zoom calls, over 8 million Teams meetings, and roughly 39 Webexes. Webeces? What happened there? Airlines and hotels extending status even though no one was going anywhere. Make no mistake, RSA is back. San Francisco, Moscone Center, the Marriott Marquis second floor, the W Bar, ground zero for the return of the biggest, perhaps most important show in cybersecurity. The swag, unused dry fit golf shirts, tragically colored shoes, environmentally sensitive things that fill up your suitcase, then do nothing when you get home. Collision course. The clothes, no ties, only 2 bow ties. None on me. So much athleisure. The Cyber Reason satin jackets. The hell. And when you get to hell, Art Briles. And yes, dear listeners, totally ripped that off. Weekend observations from Stugatz on the Dan Levitard show with Stugatz. Check it out. What happened there? Look it up. Steve Martin is indeed a prop comic. My name is Matt Stephenson. We have met over the years on the Insecurity Podcast, maybe my current show at PM73 Media, various incarnations of LinkedIn Lives. Maybe I actually saw you out in the world at RSA or Black Hat or the Underworld or Unbelievable Tours in the Silence Days. But finally, welcome to the first episode of PM73 Media on LinkedIn Live. If you know my shtick, you know that I like to offer a little culture up front. So we're going to do this. And if you see me looking away, it's because I have to read this. I mean, we could all sing along in the car, but anyway. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. There behind a glass stands a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside. The show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart. Rest assured, you'll get your money's worth. The greatest show in heaven, hell, or earth. You've got to see the show. It's a dynamo. You've got to see the show. It's rock and roll. For the younger members of our audience who may not be familiar with the works of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer, that is from Carn Evil 9, First Impression Part 2. Tragically, now that's not only on like the classic rock stations, it's probably on the oldie station. But speaking of classic, maybe old, but definitely rock and roll, today's guest is the embodiment of rock and roll in the world of sales and cybersecurity. I am so proud to introduce the first guest on the first episode of PM73 Media on LinkedIn Live, Edward Preston. Perhaps the top free agent on the sales side in all of cybersecurity. Previous lives, he was the VP of Solution Outcome Sales at Cyvatar. He was the sales director at CloudKnox, built the inside sales structure at Silence into a juggernaut that I think it's not hyperbole to say kind of changed the industry. He is a sales leader, a carnival barker, a cybersecurity man about town. But wait, there's more. In a previous life, a spectacularly successful commodities future and Forex specialist. We may talk about that. Let's just say our man knows a thing or two about selling things, about buying things, but probably most importantly, communicating to others how to get really good at doing those things. That's 5 minutes of me. Edward, welcome to the inaugural episode of PM73 Media on LinkedIn Live.
Dude, listen, I love how you did the ELP to the EP. We didn't even talk about that.
Didn't even think about it.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but and I actually didn't realize that I am your first guest. You've been doing this for so long, and I know this is a big leap for PM73, and I'm so proud of what you've done in a actually a very short period of time, and in terms of running out on your own and taking that leap, and feel very privileged and honored, Mr. Matt Stephenson, for you to be daring enough to bring me on your show. So very excited to be here, man. Did we have a hell of a good time last week?
Oh, dude, we've had a hell of a good time for the last several years. And it is funny because we've been talking about doing this forever.
Yeah.
And all it took was for you and me to finally cut loose of anybody else and be like, why don't we just go do a thing? And I'm embarrassed. that you can't spell Emerson, Lake and Palmer without EP. Like that never even occurred to me. That's
Do you know how many millennials are watching this going, who, what, huh?
yeah,
Is that a song? Are those lyrics?
right.
I
They're
mean, I
like,
got
wait,
the song in my head.
I know that
And
from a beer commercial. That's an actual song.
I know. Hey, maybe we could actually bring Miller Lite commercials back. What's Miller Lite? Oh, it's a new lifestyle.
Right.
Listen, man, RSA, like I had two firsts that really stood out for me at RSA. Number one, first time there as a free agent, which was like loose, like no PR manager looking over my shoulder. You can't say this, you can't do that, you can't wear this, you can't wear that. So that was cool. And like I gotta let the secret out of the box. I actually shared a room with a former colleague.
You had a slumber party?
That's right. Matt actually calls me up and he's like, yo, you're going to RSA, right? And I'm like, I think I am. And he's like, well, I think you need to kind of crash with me. So Matt and I had, yes, a slumber party, and we did not record the pillow fight, and there were no feathers.
Right.
No grease lightning here.
That's the hardest part, though, when you've actually got a roommate and you're going home and it's like, oh my God, all I want to do is go to bed. And you're like, wait, it's 12:30. What did you do today? And then like an hour and a half later, it's like 2 o'clock. It's like, dude, we have to be up in 3.5 hours. Go to sleep. But no, I mean, that's the thing, though, right? It's for you and me both. It's the first time that we've been to one of these things, not flying anybody else's flag. So, the priorities are different. Obviously, it sounds dumb. Your wardrobe's different. You pack differently. All of the things that you have to take into account for what you're going to do at the show. So for you, obviously, I mean, your given name is Edward Preston, but you are EP. But EP has always been a brand that is channeling someone else's brand. But now you're out there, EP as EP. How is it different? Like, what'd you do differently this time around compared to years past?
You know what? This time differently. I mean, being a free agent, taking a just kind of deep breath and thinking about, all right, what's the next thing? It's not until you actually go in and kind of write your, I call it the highlight reel. Like, and this is what I do when I interview people. Just like I literally, and those of you out there, many of you that I've hired, I kind of say at the first 5 minutes, like, what's the 5-minute ESPN highlight reel on Matt Stephenson? Like, I got 5 minutes. And I'm going to decide as I watch ESPN when it first rolls, do I really want to watch the next 25 or am I going to start surfing somewhere else? So I do that. So when I went out and was talking to so many different people, I actually had two different hats on. One was, I'm building the brand, and what's really cool about it is where I land next, I'm bringing the whole brand to them. Like they are gifted this network that I have, and that network is like the new, I'm really excited about the Web3 crowd, the Web2 crowd with all my background in finance, right? With all the different commodity houses and alternative trading that I've done onshore, offshore. A couple drinks to talk about that one. But the other hat that I had was talking about me interviewing those that I would consider going to work for. And, you and I were talking about the colors that would stand out, the branding that would stand out.
Well, don't skip ahead. We're going to get to that stuff. We got to go in order here.
Yeah. So that for me, so I had kind of like two different hats, and you know what? It was just like, there was no like set agenda except for just be talking, just network and get to see people. And I know you were just like me, like every 5 feet you'd walk and you're bumping into somebody. And you're like, oh my God, it's been so long. And you're trying to catch up. And, some people had masks. Some people didn't have masks. Some people needed to get back home and safe and not and get everybody else sick. I get all that. But it was really, it was just really good to see RSA back, man. It was a good vibe. Everyone had a hop in their step. And I'm really happy to see the people that were out there that made the effort. And it's back. You said it best, man. RSA is definitely back.
And again, don't anybody accuse me of thinking that's original. That was a total ripoff of Stugatz on the Levistard show with Stugatz. It's just funny and it makes me laugh. A couple of things though from what you just said. First off, when you can't take 10 steps, that was one of the things. My boy, shout out Scott Spiker, who picked me up at the airport, and we're walking down the sidewalk heading in, and this is an adult show, all right? This is LinkedIn, so there might be some adult language used in this. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, does it make me just a huge douchebag that I would love just to get a shout out from somebody walking down the sidewalk that I haven't seen in a couple of years, just because, not because they recognize me, but because I haven't seen a lot of these people in a few years. Yeah. I'm not kidding. 20 steps later, as we step inside to go register, there I see Jeremiah Cornelius, which is mainly just a name I like to say out loud because it's the greatest name ever. But I mean, it was not 30 seconds later I saw the first person that I hoped I would see, but didn't intend to see. So as you think about what you did for the week, how did you break it up? Obviously, you go in there, you have a general plan, but you want to hit the expo hall, but then you also, as I said, you are the top free agent in cybersecurity sales right now. So you already had things planned. You had interviews. You knew you've got to build out time for reconnecting with old friends. There's other weird things going on. Like, how do you come into a show not knowing if there's, the last one I went to, there were 70,000 people there.
Right.
That wasn't this big this time, but there's a lot of people and a lot of them know you. What do you do? Like, how do you decide how you're going to make this work?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is rule number one. You need to pace yourself. If you go hard and heavy in the first night, I'm talking about obviously copious libations with your fellow colleagues.
Indeed, copious
that can actually
libations
have a really negative effect the next day. In fact, I think I remember the very first words I said at the slumber party the next morning to my colleague, Mr. Matt Stephenson, was, "God, I'm getting too old for this." In terms of having the whiskeys, the old fashioned. By the way,
the second sentence that you said, I remember you going, "Dude, that effing simple syrup, it's killing me."
Yeah. Oh my. Well, look, I bartended for 6 years. I know what to drink and what not to drink and what has a negative after effect. And sometimes stupid does as stupid does. So I did stupid and I had one too many. Not that many, but just like the syrup, it just gives you the headache. So you got to pace yourself. But you know what? We're veterans, man. We're up and at it. We're hitting the floor and we're going to our VIP room, the VIP room at the Marquee. It's pretty cool because it's like the place you go. You don't see it from the lobby, and it's behind the scenes, the breakfast area. And man, just walking through there, it's like it reminds me kind of back of my Hollywood days when you'd walk to one of these restaurants and you just kind of cruise through and there was like director, producer, casting agent, and you just kind of like, "Hey, what's up? Yo, hey." And then, but it's like, you got to do your business. And what we're doing is we're prepping, and we're actually talking about where are you going to be? What are you doing? Where are you going to be? What time are you going to be at here? And then it's like, oh yeah, then the nighttime, like the events. Oh my God. Somebody, shout out to Tony Zanoon. He sent me this link. AEP, man, and he's with Appgate, little plug for Appgate. He sent me this link. He's like, EP, here's all the parties. And I'm like, okay, well, which one do I go to? I mean, I know the big one. I know the one that's got like, what is it, Matt? The one above the movie theater.
The
Metreon. Like, been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
That's
we hosted that. Are you kidding me? We retired that.
Yeah, we did that right back in the day, right? But it's like, okay, the party the networking doesn't stop. That's where the actual real conversations happen to get caught up and understand people's business, because people are relaxed. They're not stuck in a booth. Lights are shining on them, or meeting them up at a hotel room where they're having their business meetings with customers, and you got customers, partners in the same room. So for me, it was a matter of just pacing and putting time in between, grabbing someone, going, having lunch. I did that one day with my boy Abu, where it's just like, you know what? Yeah, I will have lunch, and catching up and just getting away from the noise, right? It was like silence is golden. You like how I did that?
Yeah. So shout out both to Silence and to Ryan Golden on that one. But yeah, I saw what you did there.
So speaking of Ryan Golden, get the invite by him and Jay Green and Mr. Johnny Miller. And Matt, I don't know about you, but like one of my top 3 for the entire week was the Halcyon party. And by the way, talk about lean budget and just like pick a cool bar and have a cool little taco truck out front and have cool people. It was really, really good. Getting the whole vibe there was really cool. You could hear yourself. There was no like super loud music. You weren't like visual overload. When you go to some of these things, you're just like, I'm talking to Matt, but I'm looking over here. I'm talking to Matt, I'm looking over there. There's no focus because you got so many people coming over and waving and touching you, and you're like,
and it's so much. This was just a great 2-story bar where, you had to yell a little bit, but you could talk to the people that you were trying to talk to without having to lean into their ear and blow their eardrums out. I want a couple of things that you mentioned. Your boy Tony who hooked you up. There's nothing better coming into these things than if you got a guy or a girl. And I would like to establish this up front before anybody gets mad. I'm just going with here's a guy, here's a girl. Can we just use that lowercase g's on both of them? My girl is Mimi Gross. You talk about someone that is prepared beyond the nth degree for this sort of thing. She is the Thanos of trade shows. She is amazing. And she sent me a similar list. So I had my calendar all set. I didn't go to hardly any of them, but I knew where all they were. And if people were asking, it's like, well, hey, what's going on? I could just, pull the phone out and be like, well, this is this and this. And it's at some point, it's almost like geography is how you choose. If we're going to the house hand party, that's an Uber ride to get out here. And if you want to go somewhere next, you can either go somewhere close and get there quick. Or if you want to get back, like Sentinel One, I think had they did the big party with Incubus. That's a little bit of a haul to get back over there. So you got to kind of make the choice when you do that. We're going to, we're going to do some favors to people. You know why? Because it's our show. And we can say nice things about the people that we like.
Can I tell you real quick my Mimi Gross story?
Please. I mean, Mimi, if you're out there, give us hell. We'll pull you on the show if you want. I'll send you the invite. Go.
I've talked to Mimi multiple times, and I met her through you, and I've never met her face to face. So I love your story. You kicked off talking about like you first roll up. Who's the first person you're going to bump into? What's the first thing that's going to hit you? Kind of bring that nostalgia. And so for me, I had just showed up, and I am walking on, I think it's 3rd Street. And I wasn't even on the phone. I think I was looking at my phone, but I wasn't like on a call. And I just heard EP, and I just heard the name, and I kind of look up, and I'm trying to like register. Do I know you? And I'm trying to like register the face and the voice. I only know this much of Mimi. I've never seen her live.
It's only like, and it's right
Mimi.
there.
And she's like, it's me, Mimi Gross. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, let me take off my glasses. It's like, wow. So she was the first one I ran into. And it was her running into me, like, calling me out. And it was so cool because I felt like, wow, I feel like I have met you before, but that was a real cool vibe. Mimi's, I love what she's all about. And I love her matchmaker, by the way. I mean, coming from a guy that like, blind dates, cool. Getting 2 people together. For those of you who don't know, met my wife on a blind date, true story, television show.
That's not a blind date. The TV show Blind Date.
Whole nother podcast in itself.
Yes.
By the way, the number of guys I've worked for that love to tell that story at the dinner table is funny. But anyways, Mimi, super cool. And like, who was, Matt, for you, who was like in your top 3, like you hadn't seen in a while, didn't know they were going to be there. Super cool, where it was like, oh my gosh, maybe you worked for them. Maybe you worked alongside them. Maybe you never got to say the goodbye. Was there one of those that you had where you're like, wow, how are you doing? And I really do mean, how are you doing?
Oh, all right. I gotta go top 3. And it's actually 2 of them qualify as a direct answer to that question. A third one is, and we're almost done with the 4-minute advertisement for Mimi Gross and how awesome she is. But
he owes us.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to open with this. This is like 1A. This is one adjacent for that. I was walking down one of the action alleys with Dave Cundiff. Shout out, Dave. And we're just talking about whatever. And a dude who was working a booth for a company, I'm sorry that the company and his name escapes me, but he comes and like pulls me, taps me, which was like, hey man, didn't I see you on Mimi Gross's LinkedIn Live thing a couple of weeks ago with so-and-so? And I'm like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I have carved out kind of a figure as a clown, but I mean, no bow tie, no hat, none of my usual clown suit things. So that was super cool. That was a great moment. Oh wait, actually, I can give you 3 full ones that I was not anticipating seeing.
Yeah.
One of them, I know he's out there because I saw him in the chat telling me that he can't hear me. Chad Skipper. The beard, the professorial beard is still just looking like I should be taking PhD classes from him, except I could never get into
Chad is definitely getting that thing groomed. He actually does spend some time in the shower with that extra rinse, lather, and rinse again.
Okay. I don't ever need to hear anything on LinkedIn about Chad Skipper showering ever again.
There is a story in there, Chad. Don't worry, we won't bring it up here, but it has to do with a restroom and a dance, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, stick around. We'll get to that in season 4 of the Silence Chronicles.
Oh man!
I would also have to go with the most frightening legal team ever assembled in the history of Law and Order since the OJ trial.
Oh my God!
Greg Silverman and Keith Palumbo showing up at the halcyon party. Literally the two scariest people I've ever met for two different complete.
Can you imagine putting Greg and Shaq on your team? Like he's on my fantasy league for senior basketball players. Sorry, Greg, over 50.
No,
he's
picked
gonna be 6'8".
Greg doesn't play basketball. He attacks Tokyo.
No, he doesn't need to play basketball. Just stand under the hoop and don't leave and block everything and just put it in the hole.
He knocks buildings over with elbows. That's what he does. And
now let's remind everybody, we are talking right now about somebody on the legal team.
Yeah.
Like how many times I want
to forget on the legal team. These are two of the most devastating litigators and attorneys you will ever meet.
But my point, here's where I'm going. Like all sales execs and sales people that you have, when you have to deal with legal, I know that everyone has that connotation of, oh God, it's illegal. I got to go talk to Greg, or he's never going to let me have this red line. Well, after all, it does say that, we're at risk and not them. Greg, by the way, folks, legal is doing their job, which is to keep you out of the 6 o'clock news headlines and hand your business over to somebody else.
Yeah.
So Greg is great at what he does. And
so they're the opposite of you. Your thing is I'll make you famous.
Give it away.
Greg and Keith.
That. Hey, come on, we got to get the goddamn PO. Right.
Greg and Keith are the opposite of that in the industry. They're going to keep you from being famous. And you need to have both.
But there's one guy in legal. There's another. So besides Greg, I would very rarely go to Greg because I knew what Greg would say. But there's another guy in legal, one of my favorites that I love to do the impersonation of. So I'll do the impersonation and you tell me who it is. And love this guy. This is the guy I'm calling to have my back, by the way. All right. Look, EP, you just don't think that we're going to do that. You need to take your head and remove it from your anal cavity. That is not going to happen here. Keith, I love you. You know I love you, Keith Semaru. And that dude, he'll go to the mat for you. So anybody who's got him on your legal team, you're doing something right. All right, enough plugs.
Serious inside baseball. Stay tuned for the 2024 release of the oral history of silence, the good, the bad, the weird, and the ugly. We're going to get there. Back to San Francisco.
By the way, did you see my shirt? This is the one.
Is that not the shirt you designed, if I recall?
This is the shirt, and I got to give some props out. Shout out to Mr. Hoffman and Isa. These guys designed it, and this is the one. Huge Metallica fan, as a lot of people know. And I said, I need something that's like, but like, don't let Hetfield and don't let Lars come after us like they did Napster. Does anybody remember Napster? Yeah. So yeah, cool shirt. And on the back of it, it's got all the different malware on it. And it looks like tour dates. But anyways, I just,
that's right.
Yeah. Do you remember that one?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you remember the show?
Again, 2024, the Silence Oral history. We're going to get all that stuff. Yeah. It was what? Spice World, like 2017, 2018, I think. Anyway.
Spice World, not the singing group. Spice World.
Back to.
Thank you.
That would be the movie about the singing group. But.
It's awful that you know that. You said it, not me.
I love their work. I'm a huge fan. Just don't ask me to pick one. I love them all. All right. So, what we started talking about like 12 minutes ago.
Derail.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, we mentioned one bar. Who knew? And suddenly it's completely off the rails. But now you are out there. You are on the market. I love the way you describe it. You are interviewing companies.
Yes.
And I will say that from a similar thing. When I went free agent earlier this year, I got a few calls from people that were asking like, well, how's the job search going? I'm like, motherfucker, I made my own job. I'm not looking for interviews. I'm asking people to interview me. And that may sound obnoxious and arrogant, but it's like you've been around the block. People know who you are. Your name carries weight. So when you come to these things and you are looking to talk to people, what's your approach? What's your attitude?
My approach, my attitude is to find out why the why. Like, why are you in this business? What have you created? Is it a product? Is it a solution? Is it a service? Is it all three? Why should people care? what I'm all about the message. Like, you know me, like, tell me what you do in like 2 minutes. Let me absorb it. Can I get a team that can follow me right off that cliff and can tell everybody what that message is, hit them between the eyes? And does the receiver of that communication care? Like, can you
Oh,
help my life be better, work smarter, work faster, more efficient? And if not, and if it's one of those, well, but we do 27 different forms of it, or, well, we're kind of like them, but we actually are the next gen of them. If I have to spend too much time helping you, Matt, understand, and Matt, at the last place I was at, Matt was the one guy, don't sell me, tell me, and I'm like, but I respected you for that, because I'm like, why is he not getting it? I mean, I know he uses too many Q-tips in the morning, but why is he not getting it? So,
he knows
but
that
the
because we had a
reality
slumber
is,
party.
I want it to be effective. I love disruptive messaging. I love changing messaging. I love taking startups that have something that's really, really like it's like it's a gem. It's hidden and it needs to come out. There's so many great startups that are out there. They just suck at their messaging. They don't have anybody helping them with their branding. They can't get their brand. They can't get it designed right, or they can't get the strategy, the go-to-market strategy built right, or they just, where most of them just miserably fail. They can't execute. So when I go in and I talk to these companies, I'm asking them questions where I know where the dead bodies are, and I know the questions that show the gaps. And so, hey, forget about me. I mean, hey, here's a resume. Startups are 25 years, 5 acquisitions, 1 unicorn, and I come in and I build. I don't care about the title. Let me build. Let me go bring you business, revenue. Get out of my way. Trust me. Watch me. Talk to me. And let's go do this together with no ego. So if I'm going and I'm talking to a company and I just feel, I hear the ego, I'm out. But if it's like there's a mission. It's like, I know you saw Top Gun, right? You saw the newest Top Gun?
I've heard of it. I think I read about it on the
No, you
internet.
better not tell me you
It's
didn't
like
see it. Okay.
it's a
Did you
small
see the
independent
trailer?
movie, like handmade with handheld cameras, and
Did you see the trailer for
yes,
not just
dude,
one,
I'm a white
but 2?
American male born in the 70s. Of
Okay,
course I
thank
saw
you.
Maverick. Come on.
Okay, so there's 2 Mission Impossibles, 2 parts of the Mission Impossible coming out next year.
Yeah, part
Dude, talk
7,
about
part 1, and part
brilliant.
7, part 2.
I mean, Tom is like just brilliant with the market. He's promoting the next big thing, right? But just it's like that's by design. That's a strategy, right?
Yeah.
You're stuck in a movie theater, your butt's sticking to the seats, and you're like you got your popcorn, your soda, and now you're sitting here watching this, going, oh wow! And then by the time it's done, you're like, oh wow, I forgot I'm actually here for the movie. But my point is, with a company, with a startup, it doesn't have to be. I mean, by the way, I always kind of laugh at those 5, 6, 7 year startups. No, you started up 5 years ago. Matt, did you know 70% of startups fail between years 2 and 5?
That's
Did you
the
know
number,
that
right?
10% of
If you could make it to year 5, that shows that you've got staying power, and then you can be legit.
yeah. So there's some companies out there that are actually starting up something within the company, like a new division. They're morphing something new out of the old. Love that. And then there's others that are just out of the gate, couple of engineers or one dev guy that just like latches on to a VC that says, don't worry, I've got you. You've got my money and I've got your back. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, do you have something, pulling it full circle, that answers the why I should care? Because we already know 50%. I'm going to buy something from Matt. I'm going to sit down and listen to Matt's podcast because I like what I'm hearing. And you know what? I'm buying whatever's coming up on the next episode, even if it is a clown that's wearing an old school shirt, drinking out of an M&M cup. I'll listen.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with the green M&M.
Today it's green. Tomorrow I'll be blue.
Let's go back to specifically the show itself, even like the physical notion of being there. When you and I were talking about doing this, and by the way, dear viewers, this idea is, EP, what would you say, maybe 18 hours old? So if production on this is a little raw, it's kind of like Jack White calling up Brendan Benson being like, hey man, let's make a record, and just meeting in the basement and carving out 10 songs
if your sound had not have worked out of the gate, it would have looked too perfect. I'm so glad that we had that clean. That was really good how you did that. I know you did that intentionally. Good job. It worked good.
Right. And just pure punk in the garage kind of thing. But I like you and I were texting about this, and I said, hey, man, what are some of the things that were on your mind? And you came back with security hotness. And
Yes.
that meshes with something that I talked with a couple of different folks about, both at the show and I met two incredible people on my flight home, my layover into LAX. Just awesome guys. Stay tuned to the PM73 podcast because they're going to be on there next week.
Nice.
But it's a different vibe this time. 10 years ago, everything was cloud. 5 years ago, it was AI. The last one that we all got to go to was blockchain. Mercifully, that seems to have calmed down, and we're not hearing that. But what did you come out as far as the new hotness goes? What did you feel a vibe of either this is the exciting things everyone is talking about, or Jesus, please stop talking to me about that?
Yeah. No, God, I love how you laid that up. So first of all, blockchain has not calmed down. It's still very heavy. Just a lot of people haven't seen that trailer yet, and I'm bringing that trailer to a theater near you.
Well, but it wasn't on
Web3.
every booth. The way that
But I know what you
5
mean.
years ago,
No, I know
AI
what
was
you mean.
everywhere.
Yeah. This conference is not about Web3. This conference is my takeaway. And I'm going to give him a shout because he was actually one of our investors back in the day. Art Carvalho. I actually watched him on a pod. I think it was actually it might have been Halcyon's pod. I can't, or not pod. It was like a video that somebody had, one of those big media companies. And I liked what he had to say because I really agreed with it. There was nothing, you know me. I'm always walking around looking for the next Cinderella slipper in the house. Like the cat's meow. And there was one that stood out to me, and I actually posted on it. It was anomaly. No, it was abnormal security. I liked
normal.
I
Shout
liked
out Young Frankenstein.
I had to go see the demo. I wanted to see the tech. I heard the messaging. Got some good peeps over there that used to be running with me on my teams. And I'm like, okay, let's go check it out. And once I saw it, that's a space actually from the last place where I was at, where people were actually coming to me asking me for that particular type of security. And, I would always say, well, we've got your endpoint, we've got stuff in the cloud. So anything in between, we've got you covered. It's going to be detected and we're going to be, but if somebody's asking you for, a Jolly Rancher and all you have is hot tamales and Mike and Ike's, they want a Jolly Rancher. Okay.
You know what? Because nobody wants a Mike and Ike.
Yeah. Well, come on, man. Everyone loves Mike and Ike's.
No, I will not hear this blasphemy. Keep going.
If it was worth my while to really vet them out and see what they had. Plus, that's not a space that you have so many different commoditized vendors. Endpoint, yes. Email, not so much. Cloud, yes. I mean, it's like a blur in the cloud. And not that many people have yet adopted the cloud. So that's why it's like all these players and not as big of a market. I know it's coming. I know there's haters out there right now going, are you kidding me? Did you see our sales last quarter? Yeah, actually I did. For me, I think that was one. But the overwhelming thing that I saw is that there really is nothing different. We kind of picked right back up from where we were a couple of years ago. And it's not so much coming out with the next shiny object. It's more of better hygiene. That's the thing that stood out for me is that whatever you're selling, sell the back of the house. Do you have a customer success team? Do you have an enablement team, an engagement team? Sell them, because right now with this economy, with this market, the downturn, layoffs happening, people freezing, spending freezing. Right now, it's like, do I have to have it or do I want to have it? It's like me talking to my teenagers at Christmas. Hey, do you really need to have that or do you really want to have that? Right now, we're going into it. Matt, you and I have worked through this. I know how this story goes. Right now, people are going to spend their dollars on what they hear is going to help them survive the storm and, keep to the agenda of what their boss has given to them, what their goal is within the company. If they're a CISO, they're a leader, they have to keep the house as secure as possible without going and buying new shiny toys. So talk to me about the hygiene. Talk to me about what services you have to offer on top of your product. And again, looking back at the last gig where I was at, the word remediation. There's so many out there that don't do any kind of remediation. Hey, Matt, I can show you right now all the windows and doors of your house that are open and closed. But I can't tell you if anybody's walked in and if there's actually somebody trying to steal your Iron Maiden favorite poster of Eddie behind you on the wall?
It's literally, it used to be back here. It is
Yeah,
now
I
directly
was
up
wondering where
there.
that was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still in the house.
And
Trust me.
by the way, young ones, Iron Maiden is a heavy rock and roll band from back in the Hair Nation day of the best age, the 80s. Rock and roll.
Top five greatest metal band of all time, and we can get to
Super.
that before we close. I think it's really interesting when you're talking about how there's not the new hot shiny thing, because it felt like every couple of years there was, and that's why I mentioned cloud to AI to blockchain. I thought it was notable that while the big companies, and this isn't casting aspersions on them, they're the biggest ones. I mean, it's SentinelOne, it's CrowdStrike, Malwarebytes had a great presence. There's a couple of things that have hung their hat on endpoint protection. And then, as the industry has shifted into EDR, blah, blah, blah. But we still think about that. When I look at my laptop, people ask, like, what do you have on there? And there's like 3 or 4 companies come to mind. Back in the day, it used to be Symantec, it used to be Trend, maybe Sophos, these types of companies. I didn't feel like there was that one overriding big joint there. And all the big boys were back. It wasn't like Black Hat last year when Omicron hit and a lot of people justifiably pulled out before the show. But I don't feel like there was an overriding, I can't wait to see this big company, their next thing. And that's one of the things that I asked a lot of people. Full disclosure, I was doing some contract work for Shift Left, which is doing some really interesting AppSec and secure development stuff. But a lot of those types of companies, they've been around. They've been doing these shows, but I feel like the oxygen got swallowed up because everybody wanted to go see what the 11-figure companies were doing, whereas now it's a different thing, and they are looking to explore security at a different level. It's almost like changing not just your diet, but like the food you eat in combination in order to live healthier, that sort of thing. Like, what kind of vibe did you get as far as the small companies who have more room to breathe?
Right. Yeah, I think what I'm going to use an analogy because I'm a big finance guy. We're in a downward market cycle right now. And that's not a negative to our tech industry, but it's just like we're not spiking high with new and technology that's overwhelming, and we're shifting to a better, stronger, secure world. We're not in that. We had that pre-COVID. We were in that. Right now, we're kind of in this lull, and no hate on Black Hat. It's around the corner. Yes, we'll both be there doing the same thing. But it's still in this lull, and based on the market, the economy outside, and the technology on the inside, what companies, I'm going to go right back to it, what they have to do and what they want to do. Sorry, the people that hold the purse strings of what you want to do, we'll do that next year. Yeah, this guy just came on the airwaves yesterday. His name is Mr. Powell. Yeah, and he just kind of increased the basis points, 75 points. That means no more money. Inflation, 8.6. I mean, I just filled up a Costco yesterday, $6.37. I know. Don't hate on me. I'm in California. $6.37. You want to know what my 17-year-old son said to me? Dad, man, can you sell me some money for gas? I'm like, dude, I pay for your car. I pay for your insurance. You pay for the gas. But Dad, these gas prices, don't be telling me about.
When I was your age, gas was only $2.73.
I just talked about this yesterday with my boy Caesar. 73 cents was the first time. God, that makes me feel old. God, it's depressing. Can we bring it back up? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, what are you doing?
We're in a lull. So what that basically means is look, if I'm sitting on top of a company right now, this is not the time that you go out and do big, audacious things. You be lean. That's the word I like right now. We're lean. I'm talking to a company right now that is, I love it because the CRO is giving me messaging. Look, EP, we're running a lean machine. That's good, man. Ain't nobody out there that knows how to run lean. EP, give me more with less. When Mr. McClure came knocking on the door and say, yo, we're in a cycle. You're not getting any more. No more bodies, no more money for the time being. And you need to get me more. And you know what? I know how to do that. And if you as a business leader, and when I say business, not just sales, marketing, sales, if you don't know how to do that, you're not going to do well in this current cycle that we're in. And by the way, this was being signaled back in November, December of last year. And there's always this lag time. So we've just gone through it. We're now in it. To get through hell, you have to drive and keep driving through it to get through it. And those that will survive and that will continue to do well will watch their spending, stay lean, and make sure you have the right people and the right messaging, the right go-to-market strategy in place. If you don't, you're not going to be a black hat. And that is, Matt, 5 weeks away, right? I mean, hopefully you're there. And if you're not there, what are you doing? Are you just relying on a webinar? I'm sorry. That's the 90s. Kurt Cobain's not coming back. Webinars are kind of like, yeah, that's kind of like back in the day. You got to do
a couple of dark places here.
You got to do stuff that's a little edgy, and you got to, and it's not just doing one thing, by the way. It's like I always say, it's like the spokes in a wheel. You got to be doing multiple things, right? And that's why, Matt, I love what you're doing now, man, because everybody, there's only so many Matt Stephensons out there. So help out those that need you to help them kind of get that jolt, right? And I'll tell you, man, it's crazy. It's crazy good though, because I love chaos, right? Because where there's chaos, there's opportunity. So those that don't have half of what I just laid down, move out of the way, because there's a truck coming through.
No, and I agree.
We got a long way to go. Come on, Matt, sing it.
And a short time to get there. Look at that. I didn't even know what song you were about to sing, but I picked it up.
Matt, you complete me.
Wow. It was a hell of a slumber party, man. God, where do we?
All right, back on track, man.
Now that all of our children have grown up, let's get back kind of show specific. Something else that when we were talking about this, I thought it was really interesting that you mentioned were as you walked around looking at stuff. One of the things that you were paying attention to were swag and colors.
Yeah,
which I think people sleep on. They don't understand necessarily the amount of work that goes into that. You know, we've mentioned obviously Silence, we've mentioned SentinelOne, we've mentioned CrowdStrike, and those are three companies that absolutely crush that. Cybereason, in my opinion, without question, the runaway, the Giannis of RSA 2022 with what they did with their booth gear, their swag, what the booth looked like. It was amazing.
That could have turned into a discotheque. No, I was waiting for the rave to start at 5 o'clock when they shut down the show. I was waiting for the disco ball to drop, the strobe lights to come out, and some fog to come in. They had the mirrors going. They had Danny Ontario out there on the dance floor. Let's roll. Let's go. Party.
For those of you who did not attend, their booth team was wearing black satin button jackets, like you remember from the 70s, with black and gold cloth cuffs and collars.
Oh my God.
Like embroidered logo on the back. And then their t-shirts were different every day. The one that I liked the best was the Cybereason logo in gold foil on a black t-shirt that was like dripping paint, like spray paint, like graffiti. It was incredible. So we're done talking about Cybereason. That's the end of your free ads. What else were you noticing as you were looking around, the types of things that before you even stopped to ask about the tech, what caught your eye?
Yeah, colors. I'm colors.
You are a nightmare walking, to be sure.
For me, you know, I'm a brand guy, so I'm like kind of like looking at the colors. And so when I did I've got, you know, this routine where I'm walking through, stepping in the booth, and I stopped at the ones where I liked the colors, like they stood out. It was either the colors and or the messaging. And if the messaging was clear with the right colors and the booth itself was inviting. And by the way, guys, I'm not talking about the ones that look like they come out of the movie Close Encounters, which Matt and I have worked for one that was the mothership. Yeah. But I'm talking about the ones that are just like, you know, 10, 15 feet long, but that backdrop, it's just, there was one that stood out for me. And yeah, they're going to get a plug here because I really liked what they did. The company was called Morpheus. First of all, you guys know that big Matrix guy, right? So I don't know if you can see my phone, but got the Matrix on the phone.
Let me also interject just in time for Netflix to drop the first trailer for The Sandman. All my nerds out there, you know the Morpheus connection on that one. Go ahead.
Nice. But there was another company out there where it was they actually had Peak, which, believe it or not, I don't know how many people actually pay attention to this. I know the marketing people do. That's like one of the colors. Pink, the grays, the greens are in right now. It's kind of like the Miami colors, right?
Yep.
And I knew about that. That was kind of like a fad that kind of kicked into gear in January. And then I saw a lot of it when I went to the Bitcoin 22 show in Miami in April, I think it was March or April. So I stopped and look at the colors. That's number one. Number two, I'm looking at the messaging. Do I have to talk to somebody to figure out in 10 seconds what it is that you do. If not, I keep moving. And then the third thing is the people, right? So it's like, who's part of this company? That's why I would do, Matt, you remember this, like every time we'd have a show, we'd have the prep, the huddle up before the show. And then we'd gather everybody around and we'd always do the do's and the don'ts. And I would always tell people, you are an extension of the booth. You are a walking billboard. Even as you walk to the bathroom, as you walk to get a sandwich, as you're walking over to a table and are on your phone, you're on 24/7. They see your swag. They see your shirt. They might want to just walk up to you and say, "Hey, do you know Matt Stephenson?" No, I don't. Well, talk to them, because maybe that's a VP, or maybe that's somebody that owns a company that wants to have an engagement with your company. So there was a lot of people standing around. There were people on their phones in their booth, which drives me nuts. Go around the corner.
I could just picture your shoulder twitching if you saw somebody on a booth with a phone. Well, you're standing there now at the 15-second count, not being held.
Yes. But then I loved it when I would comment on their booth, really like the messaging you have here, like the colors, and can I ask who did it? And if the guy was in the booth, man, seeing them light up, because, I hate to say it, but a lot of marketing people just don't get the cred that they should get for making. That's why I love doing shows where I get to bring people from behind the scenes and put them, whether it's a DevOps team member, or it's, it's somebody in marketing, but I always like to take the research analyst, get them on a show, get them talking. A little plug for dirty security. Matt and I did back in the day. Let them talk about the dirty stuff in security that nobody knows about. Let's bring that up on deck.
Shout out Kevin Lavelli and John Gross on that one.
Hell yeah. Good, man. I mean, did we not have the best research team back in the day? Dude. So yeah.
Season 4 of the Silence Chronicles. Stay tuned.
Yes. So anyways, that for me is what stands out, is the colors and the blend and you don't have to spend. I mean, God, Matt, some of those booths, I mean, we know, like it's north of it's 7 figures, some of these, and all in for the booth and the event. Money to burn. I don't think we're going to see that at Black Hat. I know we're not going to see that at DEF CON. Think about DEF CON. You don't have to go like all crazy. It's more of who's here, who do I want to go listen to? Okay. Like that's the one thing, like, I don't think the keynotes and the speaking spots get as much. There needs to be more shine. I guess what I'm trying to say, Matt, what the hell am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say.
Well, this is when I kick back into host mode. And that's the beauty of you and I battling for the microphone. We got about 10 minutes left.
Yes.
So we're going to trim a couple of questions that we talked about. Stay tuned for episode 2. Let's ask about surprises. And the 2 questions that I have written down for you is, what was missing, what was getting shine? And so when you mentioned shine, the things you saw, and I got to keep you to 60 seconds on this. Some things you saw getting shine that you came out thinking, I want to know more about that. You may have already known something about it, but they were shiny enough. You're like, okay, let's go.
Let's see. That's
time.
Yeah.
Sorry. Kidding.
That's a tough one. Yeah. No, that's a tough one. And I think that just has to do with how I was seeking, like something to hit me across the head, where I wanted to get some materials on that. I wanted to watch a video and learn more about that. And that's sometimes part of the problem. There's just so much that nothing really does stand out, because a lot of it does blend. And that's not so much a negative, but that was just, for me personally, my experience. There was nothing that I walked away with, like a term that I heard, or somebody that was using AI in a new way.
Right.
I do know that there's I do know that there's companies that are using AI that I'm hearing. And so I guess there it is right there. I want to learn more of how companies are using AI that they have created. It's their own data science, not they're leasing from another company, but it's theirs that they've built, and they're using it to do something new, not just in security, but in other parts of the world. I think that is what we need right now in tech, is learning that next level, not next generation, but that next level of how to utilize AI, not only in our security, but in our business. So, the security businesses can get smarter and stronger. I think that there's a big need for that right now.
Well, and it also speaks to what you were saying. I don't think you didn't use the word lull, but I mean, it's Not every
Cycle.
year is there a
Yep.
massive new
Yep.
thing happening.
Right. Right.
Anything missing? Anything you came out as like, man, I thought there would be blank.
People. Yeah, I mean, I think we were at about 40. I mean, if I had to take a guess, we were about 40% capacity.
Numbers I
you know,
heard were the most frequent I heard was 15,000 attendees, 5,000 vendors, 2,000 analysts, which puts it at about a third of what the last one we went to.
Like, I just know that if I spent, you know, $50,000 or more, and I've got that booth to get leads, like, was this a branding event or was this a lead gen event? You didn't pull that many leads. Were they the right ones? I think the way to do it is to do a smaller event, because here's what I did see that was interesting. There were some companies that have been out there for a day, and they were in the back of the room, and their booths were not all that big. Okay. But they would have a dinner event, right, where they've got, you know, 10, 15, 30 customers, prospects at a dinner. We've, you know, places that I've been, we always do that. Fill the room. Question is, can you get those people to show up for your dinner? Here we go, full circle. Why? Yep. Why do I want to listen? Why should I care? Is it the relationship? Is it the product? Is it the service, or is it all of them? If you can hit all three of those, you've got the relationship, you've got a product that they already are using that they need, and you have a service to take care of them and help them with their hygiene. You're going to have a great dinner where you're putting 30 bodies in the house, and man, you're probably pulling 10 pipeline deals right there. And if your average price per sale is $100,000, there's $1 million. There's ROI. So it's a strategy you got to be doing. And I don't know how much of that was going on. I went to some of the smaller events, and it just felt like more of networking. Whereas I think the bang for your buck is to actually have a focused event of buyers in the room and entertaining them. And don't even talk shop. Just talk about life. Talk about the relationship. I think that's the way you do it.
Well, and I almost wonder, was there, I don't know if I'd go with equally important, but I feel like there's a level of importance as just an industry morale event. You know, ours happens to be cybersecurity. I'm sure there's, you know, there's retail events like this. There's toy shows. You know, San Diego Comic-Con's coming up later this summer. These things just to show the world, hey, we didn't die. Let's all get back together and do the things that we used to do, and then we'll get better at doing the things that we weren't so good at.
Yeah, I think, and you know what, we're going into the slow part of the season now, right? It's interesting because RSA for the first time is like, you know, a stone throw away from Black Hat. Used to be like those are the two big ones, and then, you know, maybe you go. In fact, Gartner was the same week as RSA. Like, that's interesting. How many people went to the Gartner in New York versus out in San Francisco? So some weird things going on there. I think again, looking at how the parallels with going into a down cycle, going into the main summertime and companies kind of tightening up, it'll be really interesting to see how everything shakes out come, you know, September, October. I think right now, if I'm a startup, I'm definitely eyeballing September, October for where I'm going to make an investment, and I'm going to build for that starting today. And I think if you go to Black Hat, I think you got to go smaller on the dollars, even though you've already committed, and do an event that's not going to be like, hey, we look 10 times bigger than we are. That's fine. But make sure you got another event in there where you got some decision makers breaking bread with you to try to build some business.
So because I wasted the first 3 minutes being muted, and it turns
out that side of you, by the way, Matt.
Yeah, and most people do. Oddly enough, they'd rather not hear me than hear me. But the second take was better than the first. So we're going to clip these last couple of questions, which means you have to come back. But let's go to Leadership Corner. Obviously, you know, you've got a lot of things going on. As we said, you are the top free agent on the market right now in cybersecurity sales. But you know, sometimes you're Edward. You're out of character. You are not EP. So for Leadership Corner, you know, what's on your playlist? Are you reading anything? Are you cooking anything? Are you surfing? Like, you know, when you're not going to San Francisco and Las Vegas for trade shows, what are you doing?
Well, you know, I've really had this trend where I like to go to companies that have a niche play. And
so you do work is what you do when you're not working, is the answer.
Yeah, right. This time around, I do have a couple of those that are attractive. However, I feel in the MSSP world, things have got to change. Getting back to what I just talked about, more value, more service rather than just monitoring something for me. I mean, I've got a monitor device on my phone that tells me about my house, but that's all it's doing. It's just alerting me to things. It's informing me of things, but it's not really ultimately securing my house, right? So I'm looking at companies where, again, all the different relationships that I have in the different pockets, different networks, different verticals, from Web3 to cybersecurity, insurance to financial services. I got a lot of that on my plate, and I got to go bring it all to a home. I'm really excited about what I built at the last gig. It was called The Side Hustle, as many of you know. Never really got to get too deep on it. I just was too busy running a business. But I think that there's a mad opportunity out there to find a place where I can bring everything I'm connected to, bring it to one house, and this house has a lot of value to offer. They've got a platform, they got the optics, they have the service, they have remediation, they've got your back. And just I'm looking for that next thing in that managed service world, because again, a lot of them are just doing stuff that's a blur, and they're not doing what I think is enough. And man, people are spending a lot of money to have stuff monitored, but are they actually fixing problems? So I like that messaging that I carry to this day. And I just want to help startups. I want to help a big business too, but I love helping the small ones that can't help themselves. And if I can go out and give them an enterprise solution on a small business budget, man, when those small ones grow and pop, they grow with you. And I think there's a lot of good stuff wrapped up into that. So yeah, I mean, right now, like I told you, Matt, I'm just enjoying being a consultant and helping companies out, and looking for my next. And I'm looking for somebody who can just dazzle me and say, this is the next big thing. So wait for it, because it actually might be coming out sooner than you know it.
So for the Yankees and Manchester Cities and the Lakers of the world, when
I'll
I ask
say
you,
Yankees, Dodger
when I
fans,
ask,
come on.
whatever, dude, calm down. When I ask EP what he's doing when he's not doing this, his response is, I just do this. So
Yes.
just know that this guy's not going to be kicking back listening to Metallica
Okay.
demos from 1984 because he's too busy building brands and making companies better at what they do. All right, shameless plugs. People looking for you, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, the Instagram, events.
Oh, man.
We've already
Everything
mentioned you're both
from
going to be in
TikTok.
Vegas. Point
Yeah, everything from TikTok to Twitter. Epic starts with EP. You guys can see it up there on the thing. I'm going to be kicking off my show. It's in production right now. I'm going to be interviewing CEOs and founders and of startups, and getting their why out up on deck, and making it entertaining as well. Very excited about it. But yeah, anybody can follow me out there. Epic starts with EP. Thank you for the shameless plug, Mr. Stephenson.
Well, yeah. And it actually does. It's one of the great taglines ever. The first time I heard you say it, I was like, oh, that's really good. All right. I screwed up the open, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to screw up the close, because y'all are anticipating getting out of here before noon Eastern time. Thank you for joining us. This is the first episode of LinkedIn Live from PM73 Media. There will be more. There will be more with EP. Odds are he's probably going to co-host some of these. He may even end up hosting some of them. Who knows? But for all that's good in the world of cybersecurity, secure coding, tech industry, cool black satin jackets from weird tech companies, make sure you check us out. You can find us PM73 Media on Twitter and Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. My name is Matt Stephenson. You can find me at the same place I've always been, at PacMatt73, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. EP, you want to throw any other handles out there people may find you, or is everything going to...
At EP Trader. That's another one I got out there for all those of you who want to check out some killer trading opportunities. But for the most part, I got everything flying right now, and Epic starts with EP. Matt, thanks for having me as your first guest, and don't go changing, baby. Love what you're doing. You bring the energy, and you keep a good heartbeat in this industry that many of us right now need. Just kind of stop and just have a good laugh and listen to some good entertainment, and get some great education and information along the way.
Make sure that you follow what Edward is up to. As my man Everlast said, man, 20 years ago, stacking fat chips and pushing fat whips. That's what my guy will do for you. Look for the show, all the places that you get the podcast: Apple, Spotify, Audible, and Ghana. Some of you are probably listening to this as a podcast, because I'm going to put it out there too. All we ask is you subscribe, rate, and review. All kinds of good stuff going on, man. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Hit Edward up on LinkedIn. We are here to help. We want to make sure people meet people. That's kind of the coolest thing in the world. Until then, we'll see you next time. Edward, don't swear. Actually, no, we've established you can swear. So, but anyway, see you soon.